Okay, we are great.
Awesome. Well, welcome. Thanks so much for attending our Ethereum dev onboarding session, and thanks ETH Global for hosting us. Couldn't think of a better person today to give an overview of kind of what's happening in the space and just getting started with some tools and resources. There's just a lot going on in Ethereum land, so we're excited to go over today. We're going to want to make this a very interactive live stream, so feel free to ask questions in the chat, or if you want, you can unmute yourself and you can ask questions. We have 90 minutes today, so if you feel like you are confused by something, definitely feel free to stop and ask questions. So I'll kick it off to Austin, and I'll just be monitoring the chat.
Oh no, you gotta do more than just monitor the chat. We gotta. I watched some of the
I,
old videos and there's way too much mansplaining. Save me from myself
oh, okay,
here.
yeah, I would definitely
Okay.
stop you there. Yes.
So, okay, first question I have before we get started with the other questions is how do I go watch the Vitalik movie? I still haven't seen the Vitalik movie. What do I
Oh,
do?
yes. Okay, so for context, for the past 3 years, we'd been filming Vitalik and Ethereum devs up until the merge. And so that's called Vitalik and Ethereum story. We had like a crypto native distribution the end of last year, and then we're going to have our mainstream distribution this year in spring. Unfortunately, cannot share more information than that,
Okay,
but it will be
we'll keep
more
our eyes open.
widespread, which is very exciting. So yeah.
Awesome. Okay, so goal today is getting started as a developer and maybe even sort of what has changed and maybe even sort of like how is AI going to impact all of this. And we have some, I'm just going to start sharing my screen here. We have some questions that can I just share that doc directly? Is that okay? It's
Yeah, yeah,
kind
of
of a
course.
notes doc with some questions in it, but I
Yeah.
feel like I just want to share the whole thing and see how it goes. Okay, cool. Awesome. So there are some like great questions, and we should go through all of these. There's a lot of like decisions you have to make as a builder, but I think the very, very like first thing is just like, what are the very first steps? Like, how do you, as a technical person, get started building? And I think for me, it's like tinkering with Solidity. I think you need to go read the docs, like Solidity by example, something like that. Or so either go to Solidity by example or go to the Solidity docs. Either one of these are going to give you just a crash course in the syntax of Solidity. You'll just need a little Solidity syntax to figure out where to go, how do you code these things up? And I also have this like big thing here that like we don't exactly know what kinds of things are going to get deployed on Ethereum. Looking back at some of the previous videos we did, we were giving you the tools, but we really don't exactly know what the next killer app is. And that's really going to be the hardest part. Learning Solidity, learning the ins and outs of the EVM, it's tricky, but if you're a technical person, you're going to pick it up pretty quickly. The hardest challenge, the final boss is how are people actually going to use this thing? And I think this would be fun, Linda, to maybe just wrap a little bit on who has product market fit right now. Prediction markets were big this year, right?
Yes, yeah, that was really exciting to see it go completely mainstream and non-crypto people talk about it. I think like what's really exciting right now, a lot of people are talking about are the AI agent side, which is obviously on theme for this hackathon. And so I think there's a lot that has changed since even just the past like 1 year. So a lot of people are now like coding with AI. They're able to ship a lot faster. We're seeing like a lot of smaller teams actually be able to ship a lot. What we're seeing product market fit wise, I mean, there's still a lot of like, be able to spin up a token very quickly. Those are just immensely popular. But I think like with the AI agent stuff, it's going to be really exciting because like these agents can like earn money for people. They can like trade autonomously or they can do like bounties and earn money by themselves. What's also cool is we've on in our own product, we've seen people these AI agents posting work that needs to be done. So now you have like AI agents that are hiring humans. So that part's really cool as well. And then we're just I think with this US like friendlier regulation, I think we're going to see a lot of companies feel a lot more comfortable like pushing on their crypto stuff. So just like a lot more innovation in general potentially coming out of the US. So very excited.
Yes, I feel like there has been a feeling that I'm not sure if I'm allowed to deploy this thing. Like it makes sense for the build guild to have onboarding of like you deploy a token that represents your, you know, success throughout this journey, and we can buy in early and give you some help. And if you do well and turn into Patrick Collins or Natter, like, you know, some of that may show up in that token. There may be actually some value, but that's like also like very scary territory. But if the
Yeah.
president of the United States is doing it, maybe it's okay. Like
Yes.
we're in
That-
yes,
that-
we're in like a Wild West kind of thing where everybody has been afraid to deploy things. And then the president of the United States just walked out and did it in front of everyone. So I think that that really opens up the regulatory stuff and makes us like question our every action a little less now.
Oh yeah, as the VCs would say, the overturn window has now shifted. So
Yes, yes.
exactly.
Okay, so I want to zoom in first on those little weird parts of the EVM. Those first few things that like cause you to hang up when you're first figuring out how to get started. So say you've gone to Solidity by example and you've looked at a few of these things and you kind of understand the syntax. But then there's some of these concepts like Ether versus Wei. And those are the kind of things I want to tackle first in this conversation, just hitting that. And then we'll get to some questions and kind of dive into like all the different which way do I go kind of things. So let's look at what I have here is Scaffold-ETH, but what's more important here is that it is kind of like this contract debugger. And what I want to show here is just a number. We're going to have like a uint 256. This is just going to be a number, if I could do it. Some number. And let's set it equal to 10. Great. We're just going to let the AI pick. This is an AI hackathon. Also, like shout out to ETH Global for so quickly picking up the AI agent meta and turning that into this wonderful challenge and hackathon. So if we have this 10 here, some number, right? And then we have some other number, all right? And we're going to set this to 10 ether, okay? And this one is technically 10 Wei, okay? When you don't have anything there, it's going to be Wei. I'll just put it there to be very explicit. So we have these two numbers, and we're going to explore what ether versus Wei is, just because this is one of the first hangups that people get when they start messing around with the EVM. And then let me find a deployer here, and let's deploy this. Let's see. And I'm just deploying on a local chain. I have Scaffold-ETH up. You can go to scaffold-eth.io to get it. But what does it give us? It gives us here are our two numbers here. We have some number, which is the 10, but then we have this some other number, which we set to 10 also, but with ether, right? And what you have is 18 more decimals. What the heck is this? Why is that? Well, the reason is the EVM is a little computer, right? But it's a simple little computer. And the more simple we can make it, the easier it is for people to run on their desk right over here. If it has to be some gigantic supercomputer, then it is going to be harder for people to run, and therefore it's going to end up being less decentralized. If you imagine what is Ethereum, it's not just like this chain of blocks, it's thousands of computers all over the world coming to consensus about that chain of blocks and running a VM, and the VM is executing things. So it's a little computer, and that little computer needs to do some math. And if we have floating point math, it makes the computer a lot more complex. So we're going to do a trick. We're basically going to say that this is 10, but then we're going to put 18 zeros after it, right? And we're going to call that 10. And anytime we interact with it as humans, we're going to call it 10. But anytime the computer, the VM needs to interact with it, we're going to add those extra zeros in there. So what this gives us is a decimal-like system where we can do decimal-like things, but without having to like build the decimal math into the EVM. And so this is just one of those first gotchas that you'll find on Solidity by example. I would recommend just going through every single one of these, and you'll really get the syntax down quick if you're a quick builder and technical. But you can also see it here, right? He's got one Wei, and then yeah, one Gwei is actually to the 9th, and then one ether is to the 18th. And again, it's just a way of doing decimals. If we wanted, for instance, Let's dig in a little bit more to this decimal. Let's say we wanted, this happens to be a greeter contract and people can set a greeting here. But let's say we had some like price variable, public price, right? And we had that price set to 0 0.1 ether, right? That's okay. We can do a decimal there because it's going to do the multiplication for us. So I think it's going to be okay with this, but let's see. Let's see if the compiler likes it, right? You need to be able to test your assumptions and try some things. Let's see what happens if we deploy this. Is it okay with 0.01 ether? It is. Okay. And then if we go back over here, we should see that we have this nice price. And it's not, you know, 0.01. It's like actually got 17 decimals there, right? So let's say we have our price and we want it to go up 5%. The boss says, make it go up 5%, every time someone sets the greeting. Well, yeah, sure. First of all, we're going to have a require statement, which is another thing you'll learn about the syntax that just makes sure that this is correct. Did they send in this payable function, did they send in enough value to cover the price? So we're going to make sure that's the case. And if that's not the case, we're going to fail and they can't get to here. But now we want that price to go up by 5%. And you might think we'll do something like this. Price equals price times like 1.05, right? Let's see if it's going to like that. My instinct is that it's not going to like that. It's going to yell at us and say, hey, that's a decimal. I can't do that. Yep. He says, no, no. So what you need to do is this kind of numerator denominator game, right? You'll have some kind of numerator. U256 public numerator. If it would just figure it out, there we go. Oh yeah, it's going to figure it out. Thank you, AI. And then down here, it's going to know what we want to do. Oh, very nice, very nice. And maybe even this, I mean, order of operations, I think it's already going to do that, but let's be explicit about it. Now let's see if this works.
Clone some
Okay.
other
Oh,
like
was
I don't
there a
know.
question there? Oh, oh, you got it. You muted. Feel free to ask questions. Definitely in the chat too. We are watching the chat. If you drop it in there, if you're brave enough to unmute, go ahead. But what we have is this price, right? And what we want to do is I'm going to set the greeting. I'm going to say hello, and what we're going to hopefully see is this price goes up by 5% if I do this correctly. Oh wait, I don't have any money. Let's grab some money from the faucet. I'm skipping over a lot of things like burner wallets and faucets just to get right to the heart of this where we can kind of like tinker with the code. But let's see. Oh no, not enough funds. I guess I need to send in some value too. Okay, this time it's going to work. Yes, there it is. Okay, look at it, it went up 5%, right? And let's run it again, right? So we can't pay this amount. It's going to fail and it's going to say that's not enough money, whatever was in that require statement. So now we need to pay 5% more than that original price. And now this should go up another 5%. Okay, I would argue that that is working great. It's going up 5%. And just to reiterate, we had to do this trick where we used a numerator and a denominator. We can't just use decimals because that EVM is a simple little machine and it can be more decentralized if it's more simple. And so we have to do these tricks. So you as a developer are going to have to learn these new tricks as we go. Okay. Hopefully that's not too far in the weeds yet. How we doing on the mansplain? We need like a mansplainometer, and when it
No,
starts like
it's good.
okay, okay.
No, I think it's good. Like, what are things that are commonly people get tripped up over? I think like another question is just like, so it sounds like a Scaffold-ETH, going to these like Solidity docs. Are there any like general sites that you think off the bat people should be aware
Yeah.
of?
Let's get into that. Let's get into that. So there's kind of a lot of questions you're going to have between Foundry or Hardhat or Wagmi or Ethers or Solidity or Viper, Scaffold-ETH or Remix. So like what are some of these like first sites you want to land on? Okay, so of course Ethereum.org. Ethereum.org almost has too much information at this point, but Ethereum.org is going to give you a bunch of information and it's going to really help you like level set with like what is this world computer and how do I build apps for it? And what kinds of new concepts should I be learning within that? Hit that learn section. I really don't like that that button doesn't work. Hit that learn section and get in here and just like absorb it all, right? There's so much to absorb there, right? And then If you're a coder, I think that you should do either Solidity by example or the Solidity docs and just get exposed to the syntax. And then it's these weird gotchas, right? You kind of need to run through some of these gotchas. And I think Solidity by example really shows off some of the gotchas pretty well. Even if we get down here into like some of the hacks like reentrancy and stuff like that. A lot of great applications here. But yeah, reentrancy is like the first one. What? Sorry, go ahead.
Reentrancy. No, I was gonna say
You getting
reentrancy is like,
goosebumps? Yeah.
yeah, that's like scary because like
Ugh.
that's such a vulnerability by in a lot of contracts. So
Yep.
definitely, keep out for this one.
So let's do a tangent here and talk about AI and how AI is auditing. I think that if we had AI back then, I'm not sure AI would have found reentrancy until a human finds reentrancy by hacking it. Like maybe, the models are going to get good enough that that's the case. And maybe that already is the case. And I'm just an old man slowly uptaking the AI. But my gut feeling is that some of these really weird edge cases like reentrancy that sort of was actually deployed out, it was like what was it? Was it a parody wallet? It was deployed out into the wild and actually found it. No, it was the ETH Classic fork, right? Is that where reentrancy was first discovered?
I thought it was it the DAO?
Yeah, I think it was the DAO hack,
Yeah.
was
Yeah,
the
the DAO hack.
reentrancy,
Yeah.
right? Which
Yeah.
split ETH into ETH Classic. But
Yeah.
but yes, I think okay, so let's imagine we have 2025 level AI, or let's just say 2024 level AI because it's better to reason about. Back when the DAO was first deployed, I'm not convinced that an AI agent would have found the reentrancy bug, but a human obviously did, right? So I think the AI is going to be really good at finding things we know about in contracts. So now, if you have a reentrancy bug, it's like the first thing it's going to find. But it's not naturally going to find like these new things quite yet, I think. But maybe like 2025 AI is like a whole different story and it will go beyond what humans can figure out. And we will find stuff like that, which is also like super scary and also exciting at the same time.
I would actually like curious, what kind of AI tools do you use as you're building?
For sure. So I think that the obviously ChatGPT is where I start. Like when I'm like asking questions and trying to figure out like how does a Dutch auction actually work, right? I'm gonna probably hit ChatGPT and have a conversation first that like just level sets like do I even really have the right concepts here? By the way, you can probably find out how a Dutch auction works right here in the applications.
Oh, nice.
Yep.
I just
I
saw
think I
it.
think I saw it, Dutch auction. There it is, Dutch auction. There you go. Right? You should go make a Dutch auction for sure. So at first I'm gonna just like bounce things off Chat GPT. I might even be like yelling at it while I'm driving, kind of like this can happen anywhere, right? But then when it's time to code, I may have a model come up with a starting contract for me, and then I'll paste it in. But then from there, I'm using Copilot, like you saw here, to kind of pick up as I'm writing the code. But I don't do a whole lot of coding anymore. A lot of it comes from right over here, where I'm just prompting Cursor, and Cursor is making the changes for me, right? Let's up that fee from 5% to 10%. Now, something obvious that I could just do, but let's see what happens here when I do this. It should like be like, oh yeah, you need to do this. And I hit like one button and I'm done and I ship it and I like barely read the code. Like this is kind of my dev loop right now. And I feel like if you're not using Cursor, I know there's a lot of people out there that are kind of security maximalists that are like, I'm not letting the AI write my smart contracts. Like, okay, fine. But you're really like you're handicapping yourself big time. Like this is a brand new superpower and you should be using it. Even if you're re-auditing every single line it comes up with, this is like it's a superpower. I can build so fast. If you have developers or a team of developers, and over the last 6 months they haven't like 3x'd their output at least, they are camping on you because because they should have. Like every single developer in the world should have 3x'd their output over the last 6 months, or they're failing to uptake this new technology.
Yeah, that's how, because we're a team of two people and we're able, and my co-founder is like the solo dev and his output's really insane. And at this point, like I'm able to use something like a Devin. I don't know if you've seen Devin at all.
Dev.in, is that what it is?
Devin.ai, Devin.ai. So
I
I actually
haven't.
use that for this like junior programmer. So like I talk to it on Slack and it just like creates PRs for me and then it tells me like its whole plan and then we can merge it if it's good enough. So I
Amazing.
can do all these like junior engineering tasks without my co-founder. It's pretty wild. So I mean obviously Cursor's fantastic if you just want to like actually go through the code base, but the tooling is amazing. So I highly recommend like if you like what Austin was saying, like if you're skeptical, like you can use this as like a baseline too. You don't have to be like just like merging stuff without reviewing. Like this is just like the most powerful technology. Like what a time we live in.
And the like tools that we have, like GitHub, and even like the concepts we have, like microservices, have kind of prepared us for this paradigm where a bot could just make a PR, right? Like you could just make an issue in your repo that says, I really want this to happen. And then there's a PR that shows up from your AI agent that like builds it, and then another AI agent reviews it, and then you're basically like hitting the button to ship it to production. Like, that's like a possible future very soon.
Someone in the chat's asking,
Ooh, let's
I
go.
guess like, so are you using GitHub Copilot? You mentioned you were,
Yep.
I guess like
Yep.
when are you using that over Cursor?
So I would say like let's see, I want a function to like set the price. I could just say cursor make me a function to set the price, but sometimes I kind of like want to think through it a little bit more and I get to about here and then I hit tab and then I get to about here and I hit tab and I look at it and I say, okay, this is good, this is good. It's basically the same thing as if I would have said, hey, give me a price function, but maybe I'm just like old dog, new tricks. Like I still use Copilot. I still like to get in here and have a really good understanding of what the code is. And maybe even type a few lines here and there. But a lot of times I'm like starting the line and then hitting tab as Copilot finds it. And then for more advanced things, I'm over here in Cursor, giving it like more high level stuff. Does that kind of answer that?
Cool, I think that does.
Oh man. Yeah. So what AI you use? This is really interesting, right? Because there's kind of like this concept of models and then the wrappers around the models. And at this point, it's almost like the moat is the wrapper, not the model. I think I saw someone tweet that. That's not original thought there. But like there are new models coming out every day from all over the world, and some of them are open source. It's almost like you should be able to plug whatever model in. Let's grab it here. I think is here is where I'm picking my models. But like this selection is just going to get bigger and more advanced. And it's about these like wrappers that take the model and turn them into an agent, or take the model and abuse them to get them to write code for you, right? So I think there's this in terms of the concept, someone said, is your AI smart or not? I think that's comes down to the model. You want to have a good model. And then, the wrapper is kind of like the agency around it.
I'm not the one actually building our agent, but we interviewed a bunch of people on which model they're using for building their agent, and had a bunch of people say they've had a lot more success with Claude, with Sonnet 3.5,
Yep.
and that was like preferred over GPT for this kind of stuff. It was slightly more expensive and like a longer lag time, but like found to be like higher success. And then someone asked on DeepSeek, do you have any view on it? Should we be using it on our code base? It's open source.
Like, okay, so first of all, Claude and GPT-O, I think I agree with that. I think that I have more success with Claude. I had it set to GPT-O here, which is only like if I'm prompting Claude and I'm getting frustrated, I'll switch to a different model to see if it comes up with something better. But yes, I think I plus one that Claude to me has done better here, and I only fall back to O1 for questions, or I'll go to O1 over in the chat and ask it some high level thing, and then come back and tell Claude to build it in Cursor. Now, the second question is DeepSeek. I am not a geopolitical expert. I don't know. I don't exactly know the ramifications of this. But DeepSeek is awesome. And I went and downloaded it right off the Olama page. And yes, maybe it's made by a rival nation state. And yes, there are privacy concerns here, and you need to be aware of those. But when it comes down to I'm on my laptop and it's air gapped and I'm communicating with this human-like thing, I don't think that the Chinese government can get anything from that, but I also don't know. And so whatever the arguments are, people smarter than me will come up with reasons why you shouldn't. But my reason for why you should is that it is a great model and it helps you it's fast and it gets you great answers and it's open source. Like I love open source. I love the fact that I can go to the Llama website and pick out whatever I want. Um, so yes, I think it comes with like this caveat that I am an idiot and I don't exactly know. But for me, a builder, a lowly builder, like I get really excited about things like DeepSeek, especially if it's open source. And yeah, you using it. What do you think? Is there more subtleties to that? I feel like
No, that's kind of,
okay.
I mean, it's open source. So I know that people have been talking about like, oh, just make sure you're careful about how you're accessing it. And there's like a lot of different methods of like, okay, you can have like not just directly installing it on your computer or phone or something like that. So I think just being a little bit more careful about some of that security privacy angle. But there's services out there that provide it. And then, oh, just one comment on my Devon pricing. Yes,
Yeah.
Devon is very expensive. Devon is $500 a month, which is just
Ooh,
mind-blowing.
wee.
So
Yeah,
absolutely, if you're a dev, like you should absolutely be using like any of these other tools. Um, I will say, so someone paid for our first month because they just wanted to help support us. The second piece is I think it's particularly useful if you're not a developer on the team and you can just start shipping stuff on. I was already doing like minor like basic work anyways using Claude, but this was just like easier for me to just instead of being like, hey, could you like implement this? Daniel, who's my co-founder, I could just do it myself. And so I think that was like
that's so
worth
cool.
it for us. But yeah,
The
individual.
age of agency isn't just about AI, but you, a non-developer, getting agency and actually being able to ship these things. That's so cool.
It's so cool. And I'm like reading its plan and I can still see what code changes it's making. And like Daniel, my co-founder Daniel, he was in the movie theater and I had like submitted a PR and then he just like commented on one of the lines of code in GitHub and he was just like, oh, you should actually be using this instead. And then it like updated it and he didn't have to be like at his computer like going through things. So anyways, it's a pretty interesting tool and I think will affect a lot of teams in the long run.
Heck yeah. Heck yeah.
Okay,
So,
so
yep,
back
yep, let's
to
go.
just were there any other resources that you just wanted to highlight outside of the AI side of just like
So I want you to tinker, I think is the thing that I'm trying to really dig at here. I want you to get Solidity by example or the docs. I want you to go as a just like a goal. I want you to just build a whole bunch of applications. However you do that is up to you, but let me pitch you a couple different angles you can go. I think the classic way to do this is remix. Well, it's not that remix though, is it? It's remix.ethereum.org. You couldn't get more king made. This is a little scary when it lands and it looks like this. It's a little scary. But eventually, if you clear out all the noise, you'll get in and you'll find that you have some kind of contract. What is this thing? Get out of here. Uh, and what you can do is you can compile and deploy. And I don't even know where the compile or deploy button are. I don't know where they are here, but oh, maybe it's this one. Yep. Deploy and run. Does anybody see a deploy button? Okay, you'll figure it out. You're a smart person. You can get into maybe it's the run button here that compiles it. Oh, there we go. There we go. We got it. Okay, then we deployed it. And then you should be able to interact with it. Yes, here, get owner. That's what I want you to do. I want you to have that feedback loop where you can make a change here. What happens if instead of private, it's public, right? And we say public and we hit save and then we do that same thing. We hit run and then we get our deployed contracts and we get the owner. I don't think anything changed there, but this is the loop that I want you to be in. And this is the most important first tool that you'll have is some way to dink around with Solidity and get the syntax. So the other way to do this, my preferred route, but I don't want to king make here, is with Scaffold-ETH. This is going to get you closer to deploying a live app with the same feedback loop. But if you run this create ETH, it's going to have you bring up a blockchain locally and a front end locally, and then you're kind of just like yarn deploying over here. And so you'll have your app here where you can add in, let's make the owner public or whatever. And then you'll have your front end for Scaffold-ETH at localhost 3000. And this is like the gateway drug to make an app because it's all here already. And you can just prompt cursor to make a button to talk to your smart contract. But at first, you're going to be over here in the debug contracts, and you're going to have this ability to make a change and see that change. So let's do something like this. There was that only owner, right? We could set the price. Where's that? I think we made a set price. Did we make a set price? There we go. We made a set price. Okay. And there's this is owner. I want to test that. I want to test that only the owner can set the price. So let's just go through the loop here of what it might be like as a developer to test that. And then we'll get into all the other tools first, but I'm kind of doing one tool at a time and ADHD going after it. But here we go. So what I want you to do is prove that this set price can only be called by the owner. Now, right now, the owner is this guy, and that's a specific account that I don't want to be the owner. So I need to get in here and hack something up. What I'm going to do is set my burner wallet to be the owner, and we'll redeploy real quick because I need to control the owner account, and it's wasn't an account I control. So now let's make sure that that change worked. If we go here now and we look at the owner, we know, yep, for sure, our little pink and teal guy is the owner. Okay. So first of all, can the owner set the price? Let's set the price to, okay, we're going to set it to 1, and we're going to see that it's one way. So we're going to do a little ETH versus Wei recap, right? I'm just going to set the price to 1, and that should work. Yep. Oh, but look, it's 1. Oh no, we just set it to 1 Wei. What you need to do is set it to 1 ether. So you need to hit this little button over here. This is a button for developers. Your users, of course, would not have this, but you as the developer need to know what ETH first Wei is. I'm really hammering home the ETH first Wei. Everyone is definitely going to get that by the end of it. But there we go. We're able to set the price as our owner. Now we need a bad guy, right? We need to try it as someone else. So I'm going to open up an incognito window, and I'm going to go to localhost. And look at this. We get a new character, right? It's kind of like this teal character compared to, or green character compared to this one. Let's go ahead and close it and see that one more time. New incognito window, localhost. Okay, we've got our bad guy, and our bad guy will get a little bit of funds from the faucet. Now let's come over here and see if the bad guy can set the price. I want to set the price to 0.0001 ether. I want to make it really, really cheap so I can attack this contract. Here we go. I'm going to hit send. Oh, no, I got to hit this first. And then I'm hit send. And hopefully this fails with not the owner. Okay, we know that this modifier is what it's called, is enforcing, let's go find it. It's enforcing this is owner. If I click this, it's going to take me to here. It's enforcing this require statement. It's saying, hey, the person that's talking to this contract has to be this person that we're tracking as the owner. And if not, you got to kick them out of there as quick as you can. And even though we haven't written an exhaustive test here to prove that only owner can get into it, and you should have a big exhaustive test, and every time you make a change, you need to run those tests and make sure there's no edge case you just missed. When we're just thinking around, we're learning the concepts, we're trying to figure out what we want to build. This works. This is enough testing. We tried it with the good guy, and the good guy got in. We tried it with the bad guy, and the bad guy can't get in. Okay, I'm good enough now that I kind of like that. And this is the dev loop that I want you to get into. Let's look at one other thing that happened to be a huge. Okay, here's what we're going to do. We're going to create a function. Okay, let's use the AI. We're AI here. New function called increment price that adds, I don't even know, 1 ether to the price. something like that. So what I want is a quick increment price function. What do I want to do is do some overflow, because that's the next thing that is a weird thing that's actually basically fixed, because it used to be safe math, but now that we have Solidity 8.0, it's just built into Solidity. It's not going to let you overflow any number. And you're like, what the heck is overflow? Okay, let me show you what overflow is. So let's say our price is actually a uint 8, which means we only have 8 bits to track our number. And so our price has to be much smaller. Maybe it's 200. Actually, I'm going to set it to 250. Okay. And then we're going to increment not by 1 ether, but by 1. What else do I need to do here? This is a uint 8. I need to change a few other things here. That gets set. That gets set. It's going to be all messed up. Yeah, it's definitely not going to like that. Let's just get rid of that. What I want to do is just cause some overflow here. Let's see if this is happy. I'm going to have to hit the button 50 times, though. I don't want to do that either. No, 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 5 times, 5 times. We're good. Okay, check this out. So now we have this price that's at 250. Now, a uint 8 can only track numbers from 0 to 255, okay? As soon as you get to 256, that's actually all those bits, and it's going to roll around. Okay. So in a previous version of Solidity, you could actually roll this variable. You would hit increment, and it would get to, where's that increment function? 1. Okay, watch, we're at 251. Watch it down here, 252, 253, 254, 255. Now, this is as far as it's going to go. If I hit it again, it's going to fail. It's going to say something like, yeah, panic, underflow, right? In previous versions of Solidity, it actually didn't underflow. You had to have a library there that was called safe math that was checking this stuff. But even before that, we didn't have that. We didn't know about it. So what would happen is someone would figure out how to trick the system and basically go the other way. If I own 1, you could subtract 2 from it, and then you would own like this giant amount of tokens, right? You could actually like trick your balance to have like a hell a lot. So it would go the other direction here, basically allowing you to underflow instead of overflow, and then go from having 1 or 2 tokens to having like all of the tokens in the whole, all of them, and then you could steal the money and rug it. So these are just like little things that you'll find. And the way to discover these things, the way to get better at this is to have this kind of environment, either Remix or Scaffold-ETH, where you can make small changes and you can test your assumptions with some kind of a front end. Okay, that's kind of like tool 1 and another concept to go through. Let's jump back over here. Oh yeah, we're checking them off now. Okay, so next choice, I think, is probably here. It's probably between Foundry or Hardhat. And this is a highly debated topic. And I just want to remind everybody that before this, we had something called Truffle, and it was made by Consensus. And thank you, Consensus, for doing 60% good job. But thank God someone else did an 80 to 90% good job. And Truffle is no longer a thing. And back in the day, you could say, Truffle sucks, and there's 5 reasons why, and someone would argue with you. And it's so glad to have this validation that we're at this point. So people are also having this argument probably between Foundry and Hardhat. I would say that maybe Georgios would get on here and call me an idiot for even thinking of Hardhat, because of course you would test everything in Solidity. But let's get down to the subtleties of the argument. There's a little nuance here. And I would say that Foundry is better if you're going to write a heady smart contract protocol, and you're going to need to write lots of tests, because it's better because your tests will all be in Solidity. So if you're going to spend a ton of time in Solidity land and you're going to make something advanced and it needs to run fast, your tests need to run fast, and you need to have lots of tests that are in this same language, Foundry is the answer. Like Foundry is what the most cracked devs are using. But let me roll back a little bit to Hardhat. Hardhat is a little bit easier to use, and I think that Foundry is getting better at that every day. Hardhat was a little slower, but now Hardhat is actually rebuilding in Rust and actually using Revum from Foundry. So Hardhat and Foundry are slowly moving toward parity in terms of how long it takes. And again, Georgios would be like, no, it's not, but we'll have those arguments someday. But Hardhat is still a good option. And it's a little bit easier for deploying contracts. And you're going to be writing your tests either in Solidity or JavaScript. I think it's been traditionally it's been all TypeScript. And to me, that makes a lot of sense because eventually I'm going to have an application. I'm going to have a front end that people are going to click buttons and interact with my smart contract. And it's really nice when I have TypeScript because I can really translate that really easy to my front end. So by using Hardhat and writing my tests in TypeScript, I've kind of like given myself a quick and easy transition to my front end. But all hardcore contract engineers are going to tell you that's dumb and you should run your tests in Solidity and you should use Foundry and it's faster. So I think I leave this like up to you. I give you the subtleties and the nuances of it, but you make the choice between Hardhat and Foundry. And luckily, and this is a really cool part about this, about how robust our ecosystem is. Luckily, we have the option. We're not stuck with Truffle. We have innovators, and both of these products are constantly pushing the boundaries and moving the goalposts, and the Overton window is shifting on us, right? There's so many really cool things that are happening, and we're so lucky to have both of these wonderful tools. Just to recap, Foundry is probably more for the hardcore cracked engineer that wants to write their tests in Solidity, and they need them all to run fast, and they have a huge bank of tests. Hardhat is a little bit more approachable, a little bit easier to deploy contracts. I think you now have the option between the two, but it used to be only tests in TypeScript, which led to an easier experience when you wrote your front end. The kind of insight that I had with Scaffold-ETH is that when I was building apps, I didn't know exactly how to write. I knew how to write some Solidity, but I didn't know exactly how this protocol is going to work. If you're going to sit down and you're going to build a stable coin, you have some ideas about the Oracle and you have some ideas about liquidations and having that kind of stuff, but you don't know exactly what the code is going to look like. And you kind of have to write it out and tinker with it and try some things. And maybe you're like a crack developer that just sees the whole thing and you can just like bang it out. Maybe you don't need to dink around with it, but I need to dink around with it. I'm the kind of guy that kind of needs to try it and dink around with it and see if it does what I expect it to do. And so I think that like that's why I like Hardhat in that my tests are closer to a front end and that I can dink around with it a little bit more. And I can kind of have a front end coming up in parallel. So as I'm writing my smart contract, I'm already putting buttons over here and I'm already kind of displaying things. And I'm realizing, oh shoot, I need an event in that contract. And if I were to just build the protocol and ship it, I might have forgotten about that event that I never would have found until I started writing my front end. And then trying to display all this information, I realize I need all these extra events and information and read functions from my contract that is already off to the auditor and we have 6 months or something, right? So the way I build things, and maybe it's not the way you build things, and that's okay. The way I build things is kind of iterating between the smart contract and the front end, getting a feel for how certain things work, making sure it displays correctly. Uh, but I don't have hundreds or thousands of users on chain. There are other guys out there that have built, guys and girls out there that have built apps that have users on chain. And some of them would say that the traditional method of write a really good protocol and test it really well and send it off to the auditor and your front end is sort of an afterthought. That's sort of what has product market fit right now. And that's sort of what we see in the space. But my intuition is a little bit of messing around with the front end is going to give you some superpowers in terms of making sure your protocol kind of works once it's shipped and it has users and that front end isn't a huge pain in the butt. Okay,
Awesome.
so that's my dinking around tool. Go, 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 go.
I think the other, yeah, talking about some of the other decisions to make, and a really
Yep.
good point. Like, it's really cool that there are even decisions to make. So, what a sign of a growing ecosystem. But yeah, there's just like so many other choices as well. So, would
Let's
love to
go.
hear.
Yeah. Okay. So next one I think is Wagmi slash VM versus Ethers. And by the way, there was one called Web3.js before this. And we were so thankful when Ethers came out because it just worked better, had way less dependencies. It didn't fail like 1 out of 10 times randomly. Like we were so thankful to have Ethers. And so, yeah, doubling down on that point, we're even more grateful that we have VM and Wagmi. And I would say these two are, again, more of a personal preference. And I'll try to add the nuance to it. So both of these are JavaScript, TypeScript libraries that help you write scripts and help you write your front end. So these are the things that will kind of glue your buttons to your smart contract. If you want a button that does something on a smart contract, you're either going to use Ethers or Wagmi. If you want to write a script that goes and reads something from your contract and makes some decisions and write something to your contract, you're going to use VM or Ethers. But here's the subtle differences, I think. Uh, Ethers is made by a king of the space, Rick Moo. He's a badass. He's awesome. He comes to he did the first one of these, I think, the first Ethereum onboard. If you look for
He did.
ETH Global, ETH Dev onboarding, it wasn't just me mansplaining. It was actually like a lot of these tool builders in the space. We had like Paul Berg had his Create ETH app. We had a lot of folks on, but he's written this Ethers library, and it's super lightweight, very few dependencies, very fast. I think that there's some concepts you have to learn, like signers and providers, and you need to kind of know what is a signer, what is a provider. And in this case, a provider is like an RPC where you'll get information. So when you need to talk, you need to read from the chain, you're going to need a provider that will provide that connection to one of these. Basically, it's an Ethereum node, a full Ethereum node. You need to ask that thing, what is Austin's balance, right? That provider can give you that information. And then when you want to make a transaction, send $5 to Austin. Please do it. To send $5 to Austin, you need to sign something with a wallet. That's when you'll use a signer. So these concepts were kind of created by Ethers, even though like we had different ideas about what they were. Like Rick Moo did a good job of almost like signifying what these concepts were as he's making the tooling. So you kind of like learn these concepts as you're using the tooling. And so there are times when you might be using it wrong because you don't quite understand the concepts yet, and you're frustrated at Rickmoo because it doesn't work, but it's actually your fault. This happened to me a lot in like 2017, 2018, 2019. I just didn't quite get the concepts, and it wasn't Rickmoo's fault, it was my fault. But I had just troubles with the docs. Let's go look at the Ethers JS docs. I just have had a hard time navigating these. And maybe it's just like my caveman brain. And if I was a little bit better at it, I would get it better. But like, let's see, read from a contract. I want to read from a contract. How do I do it? Contract connect, contract. Okay. Now, like it's here. If I spend some time, I'm going to figure it out, right? There's some concepts like signers that I'm going to have to know. But let's go to the VM .sh docs and let's search the same thing. I've never done this before. So look at that. I was looking for it. Read from a contract. Oh, I probably wasn't supposed to hit enter there. Okay, how do I read from a contract, right? Again, this is a little bit confusing. I'm not sure. Let's just pick the first one. Yep, I'm down into the FAQ. Okay, so either of them didn't really give me what I wanted. What I wanted to do is figure out how to, read from a contract. Oh, it looks like I need to create a contract instance and get it. I think these are the small subtleties. In my mind, let's go back to this list. In my mind, Wagmi and VM are, I think it's built by product people. They're really product minded. They're thinking about product market fit for Ethereum. They're thinking about bringing the world on chain and what that looks like. And I think in Ethers, it's more like we have to define what a provider is and what a signer is. And it was just made like a few years earlier, and it's just targeted, I feel like more at highly technical people rather than product people that are trying to make something, even though like these guys are very high, like the Wagmi guys, Jake and Akweb are human geniuses also. I think they're just thinking a little bit more about product people, and their docs are a little bit easier to use. So in Scaffold-ETH, we ended up going with Wagmi and VM, but I do not want to discount Ethers, and we're so lucky to have the choice. And maybe Ethers works great for you. Uh, I, the only argument I would say is like sometimes I have a hard time with these docs, but again, it's probably just my small brain. Like maybe you big brain it and you got it. Okay, does that cover? Do you think we covered those? Should we move
Yeah,
on
that
to the
was great.
next?
Yes.
Awesome. I haven't even been looking at questions either. 23 new messages. Is it all the note takers? Oh, okay. We're just dropping links in here. Awesome. Amazing. Webm.dev. Oh, yeah, these are great. Providers, signers. Yep, yep, yep. Okay, here we go. Solidity versus Viper, right? I think this one is pretty largely leaning towards Solidity. I think when you see so many protocols go to production with Solidity, and then the kind of like the backwards effect of so many new curriculums and so many examples, a lot of it is in Solidity. And Solidity is a JavaScript-like language, I think. TypeScript, no, TypeScript-like language. Solidity to me is easier, and there's just more documentation on it. However, Viper is around and it is an option and it's more Python based. So what I would argue here is maybe you're a data scientist or maybe you're an AI nerd and all you've really done is Python for the last few years. Your first smart contracts might be Viper. You might start writing something in Viper, and I'm pretty sure Uniswap v2 was written in Viper. So I think that like some protocols are written in Viper, maybe Curve or something like that. There are
Mhm.
protocols that write in Viper, but it's going to be a lot smaller. But I still see it as like a gateway drug where you, as an AI nerd, have only written Python. So your first few smart contracts, if you're making a hello world, you're making a buy me a coffee, you're making a staking app or something simple, a token vendor, maybe Viper is the answer for you. I would say that like, again, this is like, there's subtleties and nuances to the question. And while Solidity seems to be sort of like the winner, and most examples are in Solidity, Viper is also an option and especially friendly to Python developers. Okay, this one I've made my stance on pretty clear. I think I think that Remix is an OG and it's king made to high heaven, and it's great, and people are still using it. I don't even know what is it doing over here. It's like over here thinking or something. But I think
Oh,
it's a little bit too complicated, and my caveman brain just has a hard time dealing with all of this. But the numbers show people are using it. People use like it's so nice that you can just come here in a browser, right? Like the superpower of Remix is that it gets you right into the heart of Ethereum and lets you dink around with Solidity and see the effects of it immediately. The downside of Remix is like everything else here and the last like 7 years of development that they've added to it. And agree to disagree, like it's an awesome product and we're so thankful to have the choices. But I think they should have gotten like Remix to a Remix Lite kind of stage that kind of feels just like this. And there's your code on one side, and there's this on the other side, and there's a compile button and a deploy button, and maybe a pull down that lets you select a couple things, but that's it. That's the whole website. You stop right there. You put it into maintenance mode. You have one developer that you pay less than $100,000 a year to maintain, and that's the whole thing. That's how I would have done Remix, but it's gone a different way, but it's still an amazing product. And if you need to get to the heart and you need to be able to dink around with Solidity and you need to test your assumptions. So go use Remix or Scaffold-ETH. Either one is a great option. Find the one that works best for you. All right, I'm going to have some more opinions here on curriculum, but let me pause there to see if we have. Okay, I don't think there's
No, we'll come back to one of the other questions later.
Custom cursor rules. Oh yes, I do. Yeah, we Web3 dev, shout out. I do have some, I think the cursor rules file, right? Let's just make sure that everyone knows about that already. There's this cursor rules file. Just Google it. And it's a dot cursor rules, and that's going to live in your code directory. And you can basically use it to give a bunch of hints to your cursor AI. So just be aware of the cursor rules and know that like instead of just like starting a fresh thing and prompting it right off with like all the docs, you could just like have that into your cursor rules. A lot of the ways I actually do this, sorry for the tangent, I will actually go to the Scaffold-ETH docs. And when I want to read from a contract, I'm going to get the scaffold contract reader and I'm going to paste it in over here. Let's go. Let's go to our front end. Let's try it. See if this just works. We'll go to the page and we'll say something like, here is how you read from a contract. And I'll paste that in. And then I'll say something like, please read who the owner is and display it. Okay, let's see what happens, right? We've given it an example. It could have been in our cursor rules. We've given it a prompt to go build something. Let's see if it does it perfect first try, or we have to like add some things. So let's see, what has it done? Oh, do I have to hit apply? Apply. So it brings in the scaffold-ETH, it queries for the owner, and it displays it. I think it's going to do it. Oh, you know what? It even wrapped it in an address. Very nice. Very nice. Let's just go look at our front end. I think we've got a front end. Let's see, which one is it up here? Let's go back to our homepage. Look at that contract owner. It's displayed. It's even using a nice thing. I don't even know how we got here, but now I have two other tangents. This is how my brain works. We're just on tangent land. Let me pull these threads though, because I think they're interesting. So one thing is watch. Whoops, did I not accept that? Wait. Is that all good? Let me go back to that, make sure we're good. Okay, we're all good. Okay, cool. One thing is how cool TypeScript is. The fact that you have TypeScript, your front end, so we're in React land now, we're building a front end. Your front end knows about your smart contracts. So watch this. If I open up this quote, so I know that I want to talk to my contract, but I don't know what function I want to call. I forgot what we've added here. As soon as I open up these quotes, look at this. It actually reads my smart contract and tells me all the available items in the smart contract. And then I just pick owner, right? So even at this point, if you didn't have any AI, you still have all these like nice guardrails that are helping you get to the fact that that's an owner. Okay, so that was one thread I wanted to pull. Second thread I wanted to pull is how nice this address component is. Another thing you get out of the box with Scaffold-ETH is a bunch of components that make things look a lot nicer. Let's go ahead and just pull this off for a second and let's hit save and look how ugly that looks, okay? Contract owner, blah, 0xDFFFFF, right? No one wants to see that. No one wants to mess around with that. No one can even look at that and like make sense of it, right? What you need is to take that address and wrap it in this component that then turns that into this nice, pretty blocky preview, that thing. It even has like, if we go to debug contracts, then I type in atg.eth, this component even, I didn't get there. This component not only has that blocky, but it's going to bring in my ENS avatar and it's going to show me my ENS. So these little things like ENS up front, ENS avatars up front, your app is going to need that. And you may not realize it now when you're dinking around, but by the time you ship your app, you're going to have to rebuild all this stuff into your app. You might as well just grab these components out of Scaffold-ETH and use them. So those were the two threads I wanted to pull there. Let's roll it all the way back to the original thing. Let me pause there just in case there's a thing, and then let's start talking about like how to learn.
I think we're
Someone in the
good.
chat said Rebix debugger is nice. Yes, I'm sure that there's a lot of nice things in there. Even the new stuff that they've added, like AI, I bet it's awesome. I just haven't. I'm too afraid of it every time I open it that I really haven't got into really dig in and get it. Okay. I mean, like when I started, I was dinking around with Remix, but yeah. Okay, let's get into curriculum. So first of all, you gotta like know how to learn, right? You don't need to go pay for a class to go learn. It's 2025. you can start by just asking AI, right? You can have an AI tutor that takes you through all of these concepts. You could paste Solidity by example into ChatGPT, and you could say, build me a 3-week curriculum that covers all of these concepts. And it's going to do a damn good job of it. And if you follow that, it's going to be better than how I could teach you, probably one-on-one, right? Like literally everyone at home now has like a one-on-one tutor because there's so much content available that's good, and that the AI can distill it and teach it to you, which is so freaking sweet. But curriculums. Oh, sorry. Did you want
No, I
to
was saying
jump in
that's
there?
so cool. Like I didn't
It's
even
so
think
cool.
about that. Like put together a 3-week curriculum based off this. Like that's so genius.
I'm like my 8-year-old. I'm really excited about like I can just have like uh, a temporary dad that I make out of GPT. And it's like, go ask temporary dad first and see if he can answer it because he's probably smarter than me. But like my 8-year-old has all these questions and I want to teach him all these things, but I think AI could do it better than I can. And I feel like I'm a great teacher and I work very hard to be a good teacher. And I still think that like with the correct prompt, it's going to come back with more insightful ways to teach than I could come up with. So how do you learn? Now, my instinct here is that you should build a bunch of things. You kind of need to, we don't exactly know what the product market fit is, but we've seen some things. We've seen how it's been used before. So you should build all of those things. And I don't mean just the hacks, which you definitely should, right? You should learn that reentrancy and overflow are things that we've already talked about, but scroll down here and like, you know, delegate call is complicated and it takes some time to wrap your head around. And when you really get all these hacks figured out, go take on both the Build Guild CTF at ctf.buildguild and also take on the Ethernaut. These will test your knowledge on whether you've got these hacks figured out. Sorry, I tangented off, and now we're talking about once you're really good at things, how to test that. But do that. Okay, but let's roll back. Let's roll back. You're a starter. You're getting started. You're building some apps. Instead of hacks, look at all these things here, these applications. Make a wallet, make a multi-sig. Understand how a Merkle tree can take a bunch of off-chain information and just use a single proof. You'll have a little bit more in your front end, but then you can store like a huge amount of information in like a tiny thing. Uh, Iterable mapping. Just go through all of these and understand them really well. And there's things here that there's things that have product market fit that aren't here. I mean, is there a stable coin here, for instance? I don't know if I see a stable coin, and you should. You should go build a stable coin. You should go build a prediction market. You should build these things, even if they're toy versions, right? For instance, your stable coin is going to need an oracle. You don't need to get some fancy oracle. Just make like an account that's just like making a request and answering it. That's not secure. That won't work in production, but it works perfect to build a toy version.
I think another interesting lead is actually looking at like 2016, 2017 era projects that
TCRs.
weren't possible because it's like you didn't have L2s and stable coins and like everything was so expensive on chain. So like that could be fun to like revisit. Like what are things people try to build that are just like possible now? So that's kind of fun to go through.
My 2017 era exploration is still on. If you go to buildguild.com and you scroll all the way down at the very bottom, I have this tech tree hidden. And by the way, like the ETH tech tree is coming out. We've been building a bunch of stuff, but I have this really ugly tech tree, and I've shared it on previous times. Let me just paste that into the chat just so we have it. But it's this Miro board, and it's this disgusting Miro board. I mean, it's like huge, and it's all over the place. It's definitely my Charlie meme here, right? This is me just like laying out everything I possibly could from the start, right? Like the very first things. Maybe it's an intro course from Patrick. Maybe it's how to get started from Natter. But you need to like get the context of how to do things. So you need to get the syntax down. But then it's like this giant tree of different things. And like, yeah, this tokenization branch is so 2019, 2018, TCRs and bonding
Oh my.
curves and yeah, some fun ones, right? But it kind of like they branch out. You need a DEX so you can swap things. Before we had a Dex, we had like order books and shout out 0x and Will.
Mhm.
But then like decentralized exchanges hit the scene, and once you have a decentralized exchange, then you have a whole bunch of other things. If you pair that, say, with a price feed, then you can do lending or TWAP or LP token farming, right? There's lots of fun stuff to get to here, but this goes through all the different things we thought might happen or might not happen, like DeSci and identity and gaming and zero knowledge. And then down here there's like NFTs. Boy, those really held on. And and running your own node, right? Love that. You got to run your own node. I think one is like build your own CLI. Yeah, right here. This is one of my favorites. I think once you're done learning, and we'll get back to the curriculum in a little bit, but once you're done with every other curriculum and you need to start building your own tools, build your own CLI because you'll learn so much about the nuances and little things. And at the same time, you'll have like a little toolkit that you can do anything you want with. But like signed messages and UX and account abstraction and smart contract wallets and mobile. I feel like this is an area where I personally am lacking too much. I have Scaffold-ETH and I can help you build a desktop app, but if you're going to build a mobile native app, you're going to do it in React Native, and you're going to have a hard time because there aren't great examples. There's not a lot of great tools around building a mobile app, which is kind of like an obvious like screw up on my part, and we need to do better, and I will do better. Mempool, EVM, auditing, so many cool things. Auditing used to be so hard and so expensive, and it is, of course, still and complicated, but people created markets around it, and they created these like really cool, you can basically get your start at becoming an auditor by going onto these platforms and competing with other people to find things in code bases. And if you do that, you're also like kind of providing an audit to someone, so someone can get kind of like this first audit by giving it to a bunch of people to compete. And so people are making money off this. It used to be like you could even get away with just like gas optimizations and you could make money off that, but like the competition is really steep there. So you really have to kind of find some major things to make money off of these, but they're still available. And, huge shout out to these platforms. By building these platforms, the price and the time for audits has gone down. And that's like an amazing effect on the ecosystem. Okay.
Wow, that's
Yep.
really cool, Doc. I didn't know about this, and I feel like it's a peek into your brain. Just like
The
there's
Charlie
so
meme.
much going
Yes.
on, but it's
Yes.
really, really fascinating.
Yes. It starts with me smoking a huge cigarette, and then I'm like, yeah, yeah, ripping a ciggy. Okay, so hold on. You cross this out, but I'm not quite
Oh,
done
you're
yet.
not done. All right.
No, no. Can you believe it? I didn't really even hit this. Okay. You want to start by building things. You want to get the syntax down. You want to get in this mode where you can dink around, whether you're using a remix or Scaffold-ETH or something else. Get to the point where you can write some Solidity, you can compile it, and you can see and you can mess with it, right? And you can get in that. Once you're in that, you just need to build a whole bunch of things. And whether you go build a whole bunch of things from Solidity by example, whether you search the internet for what should I build next, or you use the SpeedRun. So I gotta really want to shout out SpeedRun Ethereum. I think this is the best curriculum. I think this is the best way to get started. If you're a developer, you can land here and you can go through a couple of days to a couple of weeks worth of time that you put into this, and you'll get all of the concepts that will help kick your whole career off. Simple NFT just like gets you ready for the tooling, but a decentralized staking app really starts to show you a bunch of things about what kinds of things you build on Ethereum. In the case of this decentralized staking app, and I don't mean staking like validator, I mean people who don't trust each other need to coordinate. So you're going to build a smart contract for a handful of people that don't trust each other. And those people need to be able to put their money in. And if you get enough people to put their money in, something like the happy state happens and you go do something with that money. But if two or three people put in their money, but you don't get enough money staked, you need to have kind of the sad path that for sure doesn't get any funds locked and no one loses their money. So that's like table stakes here. No money can be lost or locked, but people need to be able to have the chance to coordinate. Whether they coordinate or not is kind of up to them, but you're going to write the rules that say no one's going to get screwed here. Like we're going to make it the rules so we have some great guidelines. So you either coordinate and make the thing happen, or you defect and basically you get your money back. And so this really like shows that in a build, and hopefully builders get that. It also teaches you that like nothing is automatic. Even the moment after you get past some timeout period, it doesn't just like automatically either go one direction or the other. Someone's got to click the button and someone's got to hit it, which kind of brings up this whole Web3 cron job thing that we get into here. If you're building a cron job in Web 2, you just have a machine and it runs at night and it compounds your interest or cleans your logs or whatever it does. But you can't do that in Web 3. In Web 3, we have a blockchain, and a blockchain is very hard and very secure. If you have just one dinky service checking in, there's a million ways that can go wrong, and it will. What you need is thousands of services competing to make that click, right? So let's say your logs, your interest needs to get compounded and it has to happen right around midnight every night. What you're going to do is you're going to write some rules that say, whoever it is, only one person, someone's got to do it, but the first one to do it gets paid. And there's an incentive there. And the incentive is so key. And understanding that we're building these systems to be decentralized and credibly neutral, they need incentives. Like incentives are a big part of this. And you need to, as a builder, be understanding that. How do I get someone to check in at night, every night at midnight? I make the code that checks in, I give it out to tons of people, and then whoever runs it gets paid a little bit. And that's how you ensure that you'll have a service that checks in. And that's how you make something automatic. Even though nothing on chain is automatic, someone's got to poke it and hit the button. And the kind of thing that you're building is something that people who don't trust each other can use to coordinate. And that's challenge one, right? That's the first challenge of the speed run. The second one is like, hey, you want a meme coin? You want to build your own token and sell it in a vending machine and get rich? Like, follow this and F off, you can go. I don't care. But we just wanted to teach you how to do that so you understand one of the, most powerful primitives here, which is like this ERC20 token and a contract that allows you to sell that token at a certain price, or maybe on a curve, or some other exotic thing that I don't even understand yet. And you'll also learn things like the approve pattern. In order to give money to a smart contract, let's say I need to put tokens into a contract and do something, you don't just send the tokens to the contract. Gosh, that makes a lot more sense, but that's just not how Ethereum was built. The way it works is you make one transaction to approve the contract to take your tokens. Then you make a second transaction on the contract that says, okay, I've approved them. You can take them and do your thing. And in that execution, it goes and gets them and brings them in and makes sure, and then does some stuff. And that's just how the approved pattern works. That's how ERC20s work. We're stuck with it. We're getting account abstraction, and pretty soon those actions will just be batched. But for now, that's how it works. And you as the builder just need to be aware of how that works. Then a dice game to teach you about randomness. How in the heck can you have randomness on a public deterministic blockchain? This also teaches you how to attack that. And then building a DEX. This is the clutch moment of the builder. Can you make a decentralized exchange? And the kind of the way it works is it holds reserves on both sides. It has this constant product price function. You'll figure it out. You're going to go build a hyperstructure, and it's going to open up your whole world to the other things you can build on Ethereum. But at this point, I want to make the point that like we don't know what's next. We're going to have a stable coin here. We're going to have a prediction market, and we're going to have L2s. We don't have those here. They're like all in progress, and there are teams building the curriculum now within Build Guild. Those are going to be great things to learn too. We have state channels that are kind of old. Multi-sig wallet is really cool. SVG challenge. These are going to be kind of like side quests. But the point is, this is a really good curriculum to help you build a bunch of things that are going to really illuminate what is going on here and what kinds of things you can build. But again, we don't really know what the biggest product market fit can be. This thing is nation state level hard. probably we're talking about building some kind of coordination game between nation states. Maybe it's like this thin layer of like world government accountability. Holy moly, that's way over my head on just a simple builder. But that's probably what we're going to see people use Ethereum for in the coming years. The president's yeeting in and buying staked ETH. It's a new time, I tell you what.
It is a new time. Okay, so you mentioned account abstraction. So
Yep.
wanted to
Ooh, yeah.
ask which one to use.
Great. Yep. Okay. So so there are other curriculums out there. I should say that. I think like Third Web and Cyphren and a handful of other ones. Follow people on Twitter and you just get into crypto Twitter and follow people. And a lot of these answers will be answered for you because your preferences will figure them out. Just want to give a shout out that like SpeedRun is not the only answer. There's a ton of good ones. A lot of them are VC captured, but whatever. Okay, so let's talk about account abstraction next. What do we have? Another 15 minutes? Ooh, I thought we weren't going to have enough content, but we're filling it. Okay. Account abstraction is so necessary. It's so needed. That approve pattern I was talking about, seed phrases living on a piece of paper in your, under your pillow. These are elephants in the room in terms of bringing the world on chain. If we're going to bring the world on chain, we're going to need some account abstraction. It needs to be basically I land, I do a little fingerprint thing, I do some actions, I earn some rewards, and they're protected in a smart contract and no one can steal them. That's what I think of when I think of account abstraction. There's a lot to it, but there's a couple of different ways to do account abstraction. I think 4337 is kind of the big one. EIP, let's see. 4337 is sort of like meta transactions. It's a second kind of transaction, a second kind of mempool. There's this entry contract, but it allows you to do things like sponsor gas. It allows you, ooh, nice thumbs up. It allows you to do things, and by the way, like follow these folks here because they're they're really good. You can even find like permissionless. Like, is that guy? Maybe it's a different Christoph. But there's a lot of different account abstraction implementations. This is one of them that is pretty popular right now. Look at 4337. And I think that maybe the competitor might be 7702, which is more coming up. We'll see it in the Pectra law fork, I think. And what this one does is you can actually take an EOA, an externally owned account, a seed phrase like account that you have in all your wallets, and you can upgrade it into a smart contract. And then basically you can say, hey, AustinGriffith.eth is my wallet that I've been using forever. But what I want to do is upgrade it to a smart contract wallet that lets me do things like batch transactions so I can approve and run the thing. I think there's probably some sponsored transactions in here too. I'm not really sure how that would work. Yeah, you could like have the wall. I don't know. I don't know if you can do. I bet you can. Yeah, sponsorship. It's right there. Account X pays for the transaction. Yes. Okay. And that's kind of what you want, right? Batching and sponsorship are probably the two major things that you're going to get from account abstraction. And I guess that's also built into 7702. Are there others? Am I thinking, are there other account abstraction in your
I
mind?
just thought it was always 4337. I didn't realize like
Okay.
there were others that people were. So yeah, that's cool to know.
Well, and don't get discouraged. I saw this on Twitter the other day. Someone was kind of really venting that, like, damn it, we built our whole stack on
Hmm.
4337, and now, uh-oh, someone's got their mic on. I don't know. Damn it, we built everything in 4337, and now 7702 is coming out. Why, right? Don't get discouraged by this. This is a good thing. Like we're making the ecosystem more robust. We're innovating. We're moving, but we're also keeping these good ones around and making sure that like standards exist and it's still easy to build on top of these things. So I would say like don't get discouraged if you happen to have built everything on 4337 because you're still going to have this sponsored transactions batching. You're still going to be doing that there. Or in 7702, just 7702 is just a different way to do it. And don't get discouraged that we have multiple options. It's a good thing, not a bad thing. Account abstraction. I want to shout out permissionless JS too. Is it? permissionless.js, I think is what it's called. Yes, by Pimlico. And I think it's a 4337, but maybe not. I see 70702. I'm not even sure which one this uses, but it's one of my, yeah, 4337. It's one of my favorites. Check that one out too. There's a lot of good ones though, a lot of good implementations. And by the way, we really haven't dug into L2s yet. Some L2s actually have native account abstraction. Some L2s saw this coming and they were like, let's just build it in, let's figure it out. And so you'll find that on some of the L2s. RPC providers are tricky. Like again, we were talking about that provider. You've got to go to a node and get the balance for someone. You've got to send your signed transactions to a node. In order to talk to Ethereum, you have to talk to a node that then peer-to-peer talks to the rest of the chain and builds things into the chain in blocks. So this RPC provider is important. A lot of them are pretty centralized right now. There's this thing where, okay, you're going to build a front end. It's going to live on Vercel. You're going to be hitting Alchemy. Your front end is not decentralized. Maybe you have just like a very open source front end and anybody can fork it and bring it up somewhere else. And it's your contracts that are the decentralized thing. And if any of these centralized front ends fall down, you can bring up another one somewhere else. So this RPC provider thing, there are trade-offs between the two, but hardly anybody is actually running a node, a full node at home that they can talk to. And you just can't count on your users doing that. Like maybe in like 2015 Ethereum, we were thinking everyone would do that. You could download Mist, but that's just not what end users are going to do. End users don't care that much about decentralization until they do, until they get deplatformed, until they're trying to send money across the world and they can't, and there's a huge fee and there's a bunch of middlemen. Then they start saying, oh shit, yes, I want decentralization. But at first, when they're just like grabbing the app and using it, their first thought is not, how decentralized is this? Like, that's just not the way end users think. But the more decentralized it is, the better, and the less things fall over. And in the long run, that's what they want. But you have to give them centralized like user experience while making it as decentralized as possible. And so the RPC provider is one of those tricky things where almost all apps basically use centralized RPC providers, not some other method. There's like DRPCs out there. They're going to be slower. Like we built one within Build Guild and we have all these nodes all around the world. And whenever you use our apps, we actually serve them out of our nodes all around the world. But we have like two or three in Africa, and it takes 200 milliseconds to get there and back rather than right here to my office on fiber, right? And so our DRPC is just slower because it's decentralized, it's distributed, right? So there are just trade-offs. And in the long run, people want fast things. And so you probably are just going to use a centralized RPC and you're probably just going to have a front end that is centralized on Vercel and it's going to be fast as heck. And if you need to be more decentralized, you kind of scale the other way and have lots of options and make it very open source. Okay, we did account abstraction.
Did you already cover why do we need to update our RPC every so often?
I don't even know the answer to that. Like RPCs change and the blockchain is changing. But what did I write that or did you write that?
No,
I
no,
don't maybe don't
that was
understand
a
the
chat
question.
question.
I don't know why you would need to update your RPC every so often, unless it's like actually the chain has changed. Like there's new versions of these clients coming out every now and then. And so like Geth comes out with an upgrade. And so Alchemy will get the new Geth version and get it running, but all of that's happening underneath the sheets and you don't need to worry about that if you're using Alchemy or whatever. So I'm not
Mm.
exactly sure why you would need to update your RPC every so
Yeah, Christina,
often.
if you have a clarifying question, you can just ask it in the chat.
Yeah,
I want to make sure that we cover the like L1, L2, which L2 topic, because that was a very
let's
heavily
get
asked.
it. Yeah, let's get it. Okay. Again, like there's a lot of nuances to all of these. And I think the question you should be asking yourself, instead of giving you answers, I'm going to give you questions. And the first one is like, how decentralized is it, right? And then I think the second one is probably UX and maybe ramping. And then we're talking about cost and speed, right? The L2s, the trick about L2s is the cost and speed is finally there. We can make We can bring the world on chain now. We could not bring the world onto 2015 Ethereum. Like it just wouldn't work. But we can do that with L2s and even like, you know, other layers that settle to those layers and abstract things. But how decentralized is your L2? Does it have a centralized sequencer? And I think that if you go to L2 Beat, I think is the website. Why did that say musical artist? I don't know if that like get the beats. Here we go. Here, you're looking here. What we're really looking for is a stage two L2. You want your L2 to be in stage two because that means it's fully decentralized or something. I don't know. I didn't get in here and like learn what these stages look like, but it comes down to how decentralized your L2 is. So we've got lots of L2s. They settle to Ethereum. You can bridge from your L1 to your L2, or a lot of ramps will come right into an L2. You can give your users fast and cheap transactions. But the first question is how decentralized is that? And look at base is so close. We've got like one more pi, right? And it has to do with I think exiting and how long the exit window is or something like that. Don't know exactly what that is. But also they have a centralized sequencer. One day we need decentralized sequencing to be happening on these L2s, which is a hard problem to solve, and I'm not the guy to do it. But this L2 beat, I think, is just come here and look and figure out like what L2 you want. Some of these L2s are ZK, some of these L2s are rollups, some of these L2s have built-in account abstraction. I think ZK Sync Era might be one of those. Some of these L2s do things like take the gas fees and give them to the contract deployers, like the CSR contract something something revenue. So all of these have a little bit of different flavors, and you kind of need to just get in and figure out which one is for you. And I can't really make that decision for you, honestly. I think that like between these, I have no hard preferences. Maybe I do have some horses in the race, but I don't want to make any kings here. I would
Yeah.
say pick the one that's right for you.
Yeah, the only thing I'll add to that is just because we've been building in the space and chose which L2, and something that mattered to us was just like how much support we're going to be getting from that ecosystem, like what other apps are building in that ecosystem as well, because you're going to be plugging into a lot of other stuff. So like how thriving is it? And then like are they helping you market or gaining new users, giving you grants? And so those are also other considerations if you're building something for the company. If you're just like tinkering around or building something fun, like I think yeah, there's a lot of different considerations too. So it really depends on what you're trying to do.
And you could go across multiple L2s. It could be something that settles on multiple L2s and you use that. There could be some bridging in between. Liquidity is another thing, right? If you're big into DeFi and you need a lot of liquidity on the chain, you're going to need to get into these and figure out, how much liquidity does it have? When I make a trade from a stable to ETH and back, what are the fees on that? How much is my user getting? And that's kind of based on if there's low liquidity, those fees are going to be high. If there's high liquidity, those fees are going to be low. You want that liquidity, and there is kind of like some it's contained all over, right? There's fragmented liquidity for sure and UX.
Just Christina said it seems whenever I have an error using MetaMask, I need to update my RPC. Assuming MM is MetaMask, but
Yeah, I don't know. I
okay.
mean, yeah, oof,
No, no, it's
yeah. I have to update my RPC. Yeah, I don't know. I think I'm not a big fan of MetaMask. I am using it here on desktop still for a lot of things. Try some other wallets too. I would say try some other RPCs. Like, yeah, I'm not exactly like yeah. Every once in a while, MetaMask is weird, and I have to just like reset it, right? And it just feels
happens to
so
me too.
scary to do that. Yeah, but
Yeah.
that's
Okay.
yeah.
So we have 2 minutes. Is there
Okay.
anything we have not covered yet? Like you were just like, okay, we want to make sure that everybody is aware of this.
We haven't really talked about AI agent platforms like
Mhm.
Eliza and a lot of the other ones. I think you'll do your own research. Also, these AI agent platforms are out there. You don't have to like abuse the prompt yourself. There's cool like RAG storage and a lot of things that a lot of AI nerds have been thinking about for a long time that exist in these AI agent platforms that you as a Solidity dev may not know about. So just be aware of these AI agent platforms and really get in and understand them. I think another big thing is like we don't know. I've been saying this, but I really want to hammer it home that like the next big thing on Ethereum is probably not in this file, and it's up to you to like figure out and think of. And I love what Linda's saying about go back to those 2018 years when people were talking about token curated registries. What if you have an AI agent or maybe multiple AI agents that are DJs and they're picking what they think is the best song for the room? And then you have people voting on the songs that they're picking with a token. And the person who made the best AI agent makes some money. But overall, what you curate is some really good music, a really good list of music that people really like. Check out token curated registries. It's like there's like people scoffing from 2015 when I even say that, but like check out some of these old ideas because now is the time. The regulation scare is down. What would you build if you could build anything? That should be what you're asking yourself. And you shouldn't just ask yourself, you should get in and you should learn and you should go ship and you should deploy something. Go put something on some main net somewhere.
Nice. Great way to end it. Well, thanks so much for everyone for tuning in. All of this is going to be recorded. We'll share the list of all the links and resources that Austin covered. Thank you, Austin, for just doing this. You are the best. You have done so many of these for the industry, and I think a lot of people have learned through watching your videos. So, thank you so much, and appreciate everyone joining. We can just all hop off. ETH Global is going to be handling the recording and stuff, so we're good to go.
Thank you.
Awesome. Thank you, everyone. Okay, bye.